Welcome to The Grow Show, powered by Steel. On The Grow Show, we share ideas, tips, tactics, and insights to help you grow your landscaping business based on our team's 40 years of experience running a landscaping company and working with other owners and their teams to do the same. New episodes are released weekly on Wednesdays. Without further ado, here's your host, Marty Grunder.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the case may be. This is Marty Grunder from Grunder Landscaping Company and the Grow Group. Thanks for downloading the Grow Show powered by Steel. Today, we've got a really super guest that we're talking to, JT Price from Landscape Workshop, host of the NALP Field Trip that we do in partnership with the National Association of Landscape Professionals. Really looking forward to sharing JT with you. But first, a reminder, you can get the latest edition of The Grow Show delivered to your phone, tablet, or computer by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts or watch us on YouTube for an enhanced learning experience. The Grow Show is the greatest thing since being a grandpa. Yes, yours truly is a grandpa. I've been a grandpa now for about 10 months. And I got to tell you, my wife and I are having a blast. It's everything they say about being a grandpa. Our granddaughter is a whole lot of fun. She knows who I am. She likes me. She even gives me kisses. And I'm so looking forward to watching our granddaughter grow up. It's just a wonderful experience. And JT, I don't think you're a grandpa. You're a lot younger than I am. But man, it is so cool seeing these little folks. And I guess having another reason to want to get up in the morning and live life and do things. JT Price from Landscape Workshop, welcome to the Grow Show.
Hey, Marty, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm going to give you just a real open lane here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And before we delve into Landscape Workshop, I know you're in Birmingham, Alabama. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today as the CEO of Landscape Workshop.
Yeah, so on the personal front, married, two kids, a 12-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son, two dogs, Chewy the dog and Oreo the dog. And, you know, as you know, from having your own family, between running the business and keeping up with the kids and the dogs, not a lot of time for hobbies, but I do play a little old man soccer a couple times a week.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's sort of my one remaining. I try to do some reading for fun, but you know, mostly providing goods and services to children and dogs.
That's funny. I bet you're a great dad and I bet you're a great husband. And JT, one of the coolest things about my job in the Grow Group as a speaker, a consultant, being out on the road, you and I have become friends. We've gotten to know each other. That's kind of how this field trip came about. And your left hand man or your right hand. I know you got a right hand man. Your left hand man, who's a lovely lady named Christiana Dennelsbach, is a buddy of mine. Very bright lady, but Landscape Workshop is a juggernaut, to say the least. And why don't you give us a little bit of the history? Today, what are your projected sales for 2024? About 140 million?
Yeah, so with the acquisitions that we've completed, we're hoping to be at about 150 million this year.
Okay.
The number keeps moving
Sure.
as we sell on the install and commercial maintenance front, as we sell business, you know, win more than we lose, and then we closed a few acquisitions at the beginning of the month.
Well, it's exciting because I'll tell you, and I hope this comes out right. I used to be really intimidated by people like yourself that ran a business far larger than mine. I used to even, JT, have an attitude like and scoff and say, I can't relate to that business. I'm not going to learn anything from them. And what I've come to realize is that our operation here is basically like one of your branches or a couple of your branches. And although you have a lot more zeros after your revenue than we do, you're about 10 times our size, a little bit more than 10 times our size. There's so much that we have in common that we talk about. So tell us a little bit about your journey here to 140 and where you've been, because I think people are going to be able to relate to you when we're done here.
Yeah, well, first, you know, I think it's easy to think that there's a lot different, but at the end of the day, once you sort of get past that threshold which Grunder Landscaping did a long time ago, of we're a professional company providing a professional product. We're doing the same things every day. As Bob Grover likes to say, just don't suck at the landscaping part.
Yes.
We're in a people
Right.
business. So
Right.
we've got to have great people, and we've got to solve our customers' problems, and we need to do a good job. But I seriously doubt that the challenges that you and Seth and your team face at Grunder Landscaping are particularly different from the challenges that we face at Landscape Workshop. And also the opportunities, I think, are very similar.
They are. So you tell us a little bit about how you got started and about the last 10 years of growth and what you've done, because it's amazing and it should serve as inspiration for anybody here at whatever level they're at listening, that you can grow and you should grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I became CEO of Landscape Workshop at the beginning of 2014, so a little over 10 years ago. Uh, Landscape Workshop was founded in 1984 by a super guy named Joey Dobbs. And Joey's still alive and kicking and living his best life down at the beach. Uh, and and was a great mentor and advisor to me early on. But at this point, I've been here over 10 years. And when I showed up, we did really, really good work. We were doing about 18 million in revenue, but we were making no money. We had a great culture in terms of we're going to take care of the customer, and a terrible business economically. And, I joke, but it wasn't nearly as funny 10 years ago as it is today. I joke that my first year here, I was running a landscaping charity because we were a not for profit. Uh, and obviously that's not sustainable. You can't do anything good if you don't make a fair profit. So the initial focus when I got here, and certainly no blame on the folks before because they built a foundation of quality service. Uh, but the initial focus was really on culture. I felt like it was pretty political when I got here.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by pretty political?
The perception was that you were getting ahead based on, were you kissing up to the right person rather than performance? And in fairness, there wasn't a lot of transparency. So nobody could tell who was performing and who wasn't performing. And in the absence of information, the assumption amongst the team was you should kiss up to the man or woman up the chain from you rather than focusing on doing your job. So I don't feel like our team members, other than really wanting to take care of the customer, understood what else was important. So we really focused on we're going to be transparent. We're going to let anybody who's interested in the company, and some people who maybe aren't interested, know how we're doing financially, know how we're doing on customer retention, know how we're doing on safety. We're going to align incentives. We're going to pay high performers more than we pay low performers. We're going to celebrate our high performers. And then promotions are going to be based on, are you doing a good job in your current role? And are you hungry to learn, to grow for the next role? And so culture was a big focus early on. And I'll tell a quick little story about that. And also the team. We had some great people who maybe weren't in the right seats on the bus. We had some folks who frankly weren't buying into what we did, and we had to make changes there. But um, maybe 6 months after I got here, I had all of our account managers and branch managers in a room. And I just asked them how much money did they think we made? What did they think our margins were? And they were all over the place. But they all thought we were making a ton of money. And in reality, we were running a landscaping charity. And they were shocked to hear that. And that was when I said, hey, we've got to share this information with our team so they understand why we're making the decisions we're making. And so they have information to make good decisions in their own parts of the business.
Let me ask you just a quick question. Don't lose your pattern of thought. But I'm curious, like, was this a playbook that you learned at a prior job? Was this JT, the wise entrepreneurial leader? I mean, where did you focus in on this transparency, metrics, telling people where we're going, give them the reason why. Where did you get this from?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I've invented anything in my life, Marty. I just try to
Me
see
neither.
what other people do that works
Right,
and copy it, and see what doesn't work and avoid it.
right.
So I started my career as a consultant after law school, and that was nice because I got to see a number of different businesses. And then I worked, according to some people in the industry, for the great Satan of private equity for 5 years. And my job on the private equity side was very much go to the business that's struggling the most and try to make it better.
Got it.
And the commonalities I saw in the businesses that I thought were well-run businesses were a real focus on having the best people and aligning their interests with the company's interests through
I
incentives,
understand. Thank you. That's
transparency.
great. Right.
And then the companies I saw that struggled, I used to joke that if you see a company that's struggling and you show up and they've got a 6'4" CEO who's really good at golf, that's probably the problem. The guy looks. I'm not saying you can't be 6'4" and good at golf and an excellent CEO. I'm just saying that there's a tendency to pick people who look the part rather than people who are the part. And
I mean, that's certainly everybody listening to the Grow Show can relate to that. How many of you listening have hired someone because they looked athletic, and then you put them in the field and they can't keep up with guys that don't look or gals that don't look athletic? I mean, we certainly, I think anybody over the age of 35 that's been involved in management or hiring has probably can understand. Oh yeah, I've been fooled. I've been fooled.
listen, one thing you learn that's humbling is I have no interview magic. All I can know is once people are here, are they trying hard or not? So to come back to the story of Landscape Workshop, so the first thing was really let's try to get the culture right. Now, as part of that, it very quickly became apparent that we needed better systems to keep score, and we needed to really drive professionalism through the business. Uh, I think the real differentiator between the best companies that provide the best customer experience and maybe folks who don't is that professionalism. And I know you preach that every day, Marty. Um, if we want to be treated like professionals, we need to act like professionals. We need to look good. We need to be in uniform. We need to answer our email, answer our text, answer our phones.
Basic things, but they're impactful.
Absolutely. And then on the systems front, in 2017, we invested with Aspire. We installed an accounting system, and those systems used properly really allowed us to understand, hey, here's where we're making money, here's where we're not making money. Here's where we missed a visit. Well, gosh, why did we miss a visit? Did it rain all week, or were we just unorganized? Um, and we started tracking our customer retention very closely, started doing 2 net promoter score surveys a year, and really the systems allowed us to create even more transparency into our business so we could know where we're doing what we're supposed to do, and then understand where, for one reason or another, we weren't delivering the customer experience we wanted to, or delivering the economic experience that the company needs us to.
So, in the last 5 years or so, there has to have been even more learning. What are some mistakes that you've made in the last 5 years that you wish you wouldn't have made, and what steps have you taken to correct them? I'm sure not every acquisition has gone well. Share with us some of the trials and tribulations.
I mean, listen, the way you learn is by making mistakes. I think early on at Landscape Workshop, we made some pricing mistakes, and Aspire has certainly helped us with that.
Like when you say pricing, poorly bid jobs, not enough mulch, not enough materials, not enough labor, all that.
Not enough hours.
Yeah.
Early on, we had a lot of small stops, and we didn't understand that it just takes a certain amount of time to drop the gate, get the crew going. And as we've grown, and we have a lot more 5 and 6 person crews, it just turns out that you've got to have a minimum. for a stop, unless it's a very special situation. And I didn't know that when I got started. I had to learn that the hard way. I wish we'd gotten involved in NALP sooner. We've been very, very involved, but could have avoided a lot of mistakes if I'd known people like you better, Marty. Um, we got
And I
outside.
think
You asked,
I think I know where you're going with that, but why? What did being a part of NALP? I know you've been to Grow. I know, JT. I don't mean to patronize you, but I love talking to you. I'm not intimidated by you. I feel like we have great conversations. I feel like I've helped you. You got to know you've helped me. Vince and I, we spent a day with you a while back. It's just fun stuff. Good learning. What have you gotten out of being around that kind of stuff?
listen, we're almost all fighting the same battles every day. And there's no point in learning the hard way when I can talk to Bob Grover or Phil Key, who are going through the same stuff I am, and say, "Hey, I've got this situation. How do you deal with it?" And it's usually not horticulture stuff. It's usually, we're thinking about our insurance costs are going through the roof. How is Rupert thinking about risk? Or, Bob, we're thinking about organizing in this way. To provide customer service? How are you thinking about the role of the account manager in your business? And that is and frankly, we learn something from every company we acquire. It might be something little, it might be something big, and the more you're out there talking to people, and listen, other some folks do stuff that I'm like, that's not for us. I'm not saying it's not right. I'm just saying it's not for us. But we've learned a ton from our peers, and it's a lot less expensive to learn from somebody else's mistakes than to have to make every single mistake yourself.
We've talked about transparency, and we like to refer to that at the Grow Group as hot, honest, open, and transparent. My guess is, I mean, you've told me about a lot of the mistakes that you've made. My guess is you've told your team about them, and you don't hide them. Why should you not hide? Why should you not hide them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sometimes, and I get frustrated by this, sometimes people just have to make their own mistakes. And no matter how much we as older folks warn them about the mistakes, they don't believe us. But you had asked earlier, the list of mistakes, sometimes we've made our business too complicated. Um, we've definitely gotten outside of our lane a couple times. We did an acquisition about 7 years ago that had a real high end design build component, and we that's not what we do. We're not good at it, and we had to learn the hard way.
And when you say learn the hard way, probably monetarily, right?
Yeah, just yes. I mean,
Yeah,
I would do the acquisition again because the learning was valuable and we
right.
got some great people, but I won't make that specific mistake again.
Well, I was just going to say, I would think that that's probably not only is that a common mistake, that's easy because it's landscaping. How can it be that difficult? We'll learn from it. We're so smart. We'll make that better too. I mean, I've done the same thing. We've taken on projects here that by rights we ought to be able to figure out, but we don't. It's not, you finally figure out who you are and what you're best at and you stay in that lane. I think that's a very common mistake all sizes of businesses make.
Well, Marty, I've heard you say sometimes our job is to say no,
Yes,
and there's always the temptation when somebody shows up and wants to give you money to provide a service to
that's
say,
so
"Yeah,
true.
I'll do that."
Right,
And you know, we still sign up for stuff that we shouldn't do.
right. We
But
do too.
I mean, it's just so hard to say no, especially when it's a good customer.
Right,
But we've learned the hard way that
right.
you know, there are things we're good at, there are things we're not good at. We should try to avoid the things we're not good at.
And I think again, I'm older than you, JT, but you get to the point where you know it's going to it's going to get screwed up, and you just tell the client, "Listen, we love working with you. I don't want to do this because we're not good at it, and it has a high probability of going south, and then we're in trouble with you on everything, and we don't want to be there. How about I try to help you find someone, and I won't charge you to help you find someone, and I'll help try to put something together where you can get this done, because it's just not what we do well. And I don't want to get sideways with you. And oftentimes, folks, those of you listening to the Grow Show today, you'll be amazed. Your clients will look at you like, wow, I really respect you for telling me that. And you end up in a better place. But I think you almost have to make the mistakes enough and then have what I just said, have that conversation with the client a few times, and you realize you don't die, nothing bad happens, and in the long run, you protect the integrity of what the majority of the relationship is based on.
Well, and you protect your team also, because
Good point.
our teams are so busy, especially this time of year, that the last thing they need is
Yes,
for us to throw something at them that they're not comfortable with.
that's the best part of all of it, right? Thinking about the team. What's something you do every day that helps you uh, have a successful day or be successful? Is there a morning ritual you have? Is there something you do as a manager or a leader that would help everyone?
Now, I mean, I definitely try to get my exercise in. Maybe
Okay.
not as much as I should.
What do you do?
I am very militant about sleep.
Okay.
There are people who can function on 4 hours of sleep. I am not one of them.
I'm not
Uh,
either.
so, I'm going to be in bed at 10:30. And now that I've got a great team around me, I'm going to try not to wake up before 6:45. Uh,
Yeah.
and, those are personal things. But, from a work perspective, I think it's simple. I care a lot, and it's a strength and it's a weakness. Um, I wake up every morning focused on the customer experience, the employee experience, winning. And, you know, I suspect my doctor would say maybe I care too much because it comes with a lot of stress. But I think it's easy to get complacent and it's easy to not care about the little things as you get bigger as a company. But this is a business, you know, this is a grinded out business. It's that simple, Marty. And if you aren't willing to grind it out every day, how do you expect your team to grind it out every day?
What are the little things that are so important to you that you're talking about there?
Oh, um, hey, we lost a customer. And that's going to happen at our size. Why did we lose them? What did we do wrong? Was it just that somebody sold the apartment complex and they had a relationship with somebody else? Okay, I can live with that. Was it that we gave them a price increase and they couldn't live with that? I can live with that. But was it we didn't do what the scope of work said? Was it that we didn't communicate or answer a phone number? Those are the things I can't live with. And how do we learn from our experiences? And a lot of people aren't comfortable talking about this, and it's not my favorite either. But if somebody's making the same mistake over and over again, how are we either going to teach them to not make that mistake, or how are we going to get them out of our organization? Because if I tolerate mediocrity, I'm going to end up with a mediocre company.
Yeah, and JT, you and I both know this. That's so challenging. I have a mentor and friend of mine. His name's Peter Luongo, brilliant guy. Peter's probably almost 80 years old now. And he taught me the saying, and he said, Marty, I can't tell you how many times I had to tell somebody at work, I love you, but you can't work here anymore. And he said, it wasn't personal, but it was so obvious that they weren't performing well. And what may not have been as obvious to them was that it's better if they're gone because it wasn't going to work here. And he told me story after story of someone that came back and said, thanks, I ended up in a better place. Like, I guess what I'm saying is we think the perspective is we're being an awful person, we're terminating someone, but you got to think about being honest to them and what they might be able to do in their next stop. Maybe the firing or the termination separation was a wake up call, but maybe it also wasn't a fit and they found a place to thrive. But I think the other side, JT, that we have to be sensitive to, what does it mean when you have a poor performer in an organization with excellent performers? What is it doing to them and what do they think, right?
I agree completely. You ask a crew who's the person they hate on the crew, it's the guy who isn't trying hard and who's making all of them do that person's job. It's not the hard charging crew leader who has high expectations. It's the person, and when we let that person survive in our organization without repercussions, the message we're sending to all of our high performers is, why are you high performers? If we treat the high performers and the low performers the same, I believe, I'm a capitalist, Marty. I believe that people respond to incentives. And if the incentive is to be average or mediocre, I think with a handful of exceptions, that's what you're going to get.
Exactly. We have a saying here: whatever you allow, you encourage.
That's
That's
right.
what happens with your culture. All right, let me shift gears just a little bit. Uh, you and I are a lot alike. Uh, I'm resisting the urge here to interrupt you because I want to talk to you like we're having a beer, and I'm trying to be a teacher and an interviewer here. But we're a lot alike. Our brains are constantly turning and spinning. What's something of significance that you're putting your mind towards right now at Landscape Workshop?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give sort of the easy answer and then a more specific answer. Obviously, and this goes with the last answer, I'm always thinking about the culture and the talent. Do we have the right people on the bus?
Right.
Are they in the right seats? Is our culture encouraging the behaviors we want, or have some, in some accidental way, have we created incentives to do the wrong thing?
Wow.
But the other thing is, and I could give you some real examples of where our incentive structure has accidentally encouraged bad behavior.
Go ahead. Tell me
Well,
what. Tell me how.
so we incent our branch leaders on EBITDA and customer retention.
Explain what
Well,
EBITDA is for everyone.
it's I'm going to oversimplify, but it's basically income with interest, depreciation, amortization added back. And because we're adding back depreciation and amortization, from the branch manager's perspective, new equipment and vehicles are free. And we've created a world where the branch managers want brand new stuff every year because it's free, and also want to keep a bunch of spares because, just in case. And we've just figured out in the last 18 months or so, oh my Lord, we've created an incentive that has resulted in us having a lot more vehicles and equipment than we should, and probably disposing of stuff before it's economically efficient. And our incentive structure drives a lot of good behaviors, but we're like, oh, we've created an incentive
That's a great
structure.
share. That's a great share.
Yeah. And I don't think we're going to change the incentive structure. We're just going to take really granular control of our assets
Right.
across branches and make those decisions at the CFO level, where, Christiana has kind of a 10-year view of things rather than trying to hit a 1 year.
Right. Well, and paying on with EBITDA involved, most companies do that. I mean, that's not something you just like came up with. I mean, that's very common, but there's the pitfall of doing it, and it's something to be mindful of. That's a great example.
Exactly. But in terms of what am I thinking about day to day, and once again, a strength and a weakness, but I'm always focused on what could be better. One of the projects that our chief operating officer, Joe Sokoloff, is working on right now is how do we measure and incent crew leaders? We call them field managers. And right now, and this has been something that I've had in my mind for 6 or 7 years, but we're just starting to have the data where we can look at a crew leader and say, did they do all the things we wanted them to do? Were they there when
Look
they
at
were?
a crew leader and say, did they do all? Okay, yeah. Did they do all the things we want them to do? Right.
Obviously the hardest thing to measure is quality, and we're sort of working on some shortcuts. And this is all we're literally rolling out a pilot in our Memphis branch this week, and I'm sure we're going to get it wrong, and we're going to tweak it, and we're going to tweak it until we get it right. But our incentives around our general managers in the maintenance side of the business, our account managers, our sales team, I think we have great metrics and incentives. I really want to drive that down to the crew leader level, and we're not there yet. So we're thinking a lot about that. And I think broadly, and this is part of that, we're starting to have more and more data with Aspire, with our GPS system. But how do we use that data? I mean, having data to have data is expensive and pointless. How can we make it really easy, for example, for an account manager to know, oh, my crew's at the gas station as their first stop. Well, we have on-site fueling. That shouldn't happen. How do I intervene? And we aren't there yet, but I think that one of the biggest opportunities for the industry as a whole, you know, the relatively small operator can do that by walking around, by knowing where their three crews are at all times. But at the size of Grunder, you can't do it that way. You've got to have systems and processes. And that's so what we're really trying to work on is how do we use our information and data in a way that really makes the account manager's job easier and rewards the crew leader, what we call the field manager, for providing a good product in an efficient way.
I was having a conversation with it's a large company that's buying other companies, and I just was having a conversation with them, and I was asking them, were they using Aspire? They weren't using Aspire. I was asking them about, did they think a 3-man crew, a 5-man crew, a 2-person crew, what was most efficient? What was their truck setup? And finally, the guy said to me, he goes, listen, he goes, I can get you all that information, but that's not where my focus is. My focus is on making the entire entity profitable. And JT, I really had to scratch my head. Like, to me, that tire hits the road stuff. Here we are, you're a CEO of a $150 million a year organization, and you're talking about making the team leaders better. To me, that's where we have our greatest opportunity to move an organization forward with getting them to think like owners. We all convene at your branch, and then the 5, the 10, the 15, the 20 crews, however each of us listening here today have, they leave that mothership and they go out and they're on their own. And there's little subcultures that are forming. Well, I know Grunder wants us to edge the beds that way, but I don't like that. This is what I want you to do. And then quality gets eroded, and all these things that we put in place because somebody's not inspecting what we expect, they go by the wayside. I think it's very impressive to listen to you talk about such granular things as something like that that's going on in a branch.
Oh, listen, Marty, I don't want you to get the idea that we've got this all figured out, because we
I
don't.
don't I don't think you're saying that. I just think that it's refreshing to listen to you be focused on something like that.
Well, I'm probably, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but and the consolidation of our industry is probably for a different podcast, but it's going to happen. But I think over the very long term, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe I'm a sucker for not just buying everything we can and not integrating it and not getting it on systems, but I think we've got to build a great business that is a great place to work, that delivers a great product. And in the very long term, and I'm 50 years old, so I hope I've got a long runway ahead of me. In the very long term, I think that will create the most value for everybody involved, customers, employees, and shareholders. But listen, in the short term, it's making it harder. We do these acquisitions, and we've got a big, expensive team of excellent, experienced people who are parachuting in, getting them on Aspire, um, sort of moving them towards the landscape workshop way of doing things. Not that the way that the companies we're merging with, it's not. I'm not saying they're doing them wrong, but I'm just saying we've got to have one culture.
Well, that's where the
And
synergies come. That's where the flywheel turns. That's where momentum comes from. I mean, that's to me that's when you're buying something, you're trying to make it more valuable and combine all the experiences. You said a while back that there hasn't been an acquisition that you've done that you didn't learn something from the company that you bought.
I almost feel bad. And a lot of these folks are in our business and they're good friends. You know, the folks who sold us their business even 3 years ago had a worse experience than the folks who sold us their business two weeks ago,
You're getting
because
better.
we've learned.
Right.
We every
Yeah.
time every time we do one of these,
Right.
we add something to the checklist of either stuff we should look for or stuff that we need to be helpful with after closing.
So much of our success, well, I guess I would say most of our success is rooted in people. you have some extremely talented people. What do you look for in a new hire? What do you look for when you're evaluating someone for a promotion? I know that you have to take, you may need a new branch manager. You may take one that was an assistant in a branch. What are you looking for in people?
Yeah. So, there's no magic to this. I've yet to figure out how to interview somebody, a
And
stranger,
and I would
and
agree with you there.
figure out if they're going to be good or not.
Right.
So, if we can, we want to hire out of our networks.
Why?
Somebody, well, certainty. Somebody that we've worked with before and we know they're good and we know they care. Or at a minimum, somebody I'm like, hey, Marty, do you know such and such?
Right.
And of course, the reference, what I'm really looking for is for the referrer to like me better than the person they're giving a recommendation on. So they'll tell me the truth.
Right.
Uh, because, if you can't get 3 or 4 people to say that you're good, that's a really bad sign. But you'd
Right.
be surprised.
Right.
We'll do reference checks and people, they hem and they haw, and I'm like, that's what I need to know.
Yeah.
Um, so if we can, we hire out of our networks. Um, if we can't, we're looking for a history of measurable performance. If somebody comes in and talks about how they made their other company better, I like that. If somebody comes in and talks about how everybody at their old company sucked, that makes me nervous.
Why
Um,
does that make you nervous?
well, I mean, it may be true. Their old company may have sucked, but
Right.
it it we it leads me to think that there's a good chance that this person takes no ownership of
That's what's so
outcomes.
problem. I mean, one of the things I know you've learned this, I have too. So many folks focus on the who instead of the what.
Yeah,
And you just the faster you can put behind who's to blame and talk about solutions, the faster success is going to find you. I think you're absolutely right. We've had people we interview and they tell us how bad this other company was, but they were there 7 years, and you're like, why would you stay there so long if they were that bad? This isn't adding up. I don't know why are you going to be talking like us about us like this in 6 months? I don't think I want your bad attitude here.
exactly. Now, in terms of promotion, that's a lot easier
Okay.
because we have a lot of information. What kind of attitude does this person have? How have they performed against the metrics we measure? Do they care?
So
I
important.
can do you and I talked about this at the Kehoe
Yeah,
Foundation lunch.
we
Um,
did.
these young people were asking me what I look for. I look for somebody who cares a lot and wants to
Right.
try hard. We
It's
can teach
so
them
I
almost
know, and
anything
it
else.
it sounds so shallow for two 150-year-old guy, 155-year-old guy to be talking about tell me that you care. But see, to me, if I can figure out that you really truly care, you're going to make decisions that are in the best interest of the organization when I'm not around and when others aren't looking. And that's all you can ask for, JT, is somebody that gives a darn.
I couldn't agree with you more, Marty. And it's really hard to know that when you interview somebody,
It
but
is.
it's
You're right.
pretty easy to know that once somebody's on your team.
Yeah, it is. And it's just, it's scary. You're adding somebody to your company, depending on what level you're inserting them into. I always say, look, every new hire is either impressing or depressing. Be careful. Who knows what this could be. All right. We're getting further along here. We got a few moments left on the Grow Show powered by Steel. I've got JT Price, CEO of Landscape Workshop, host of the NALP Grow Group Field Trip that we're doing in June. What are you most excited to share with all the attendees when they come to Birmingham, Alabama? What are you most excited about?
Yeah, I would say our people and our culture. I'm really proud of our team. And I mean, it's a burden early in the growing season to host, but our team is fired up. They want to show off. They want to show off what they're working on. And so I'm excited that they're excited. That you talk about that flywheel effect. I'm really excited to hear other people's feedback on what we can do better. And then something that we're gonna do we're gonna be very open. We're not just gonna share these are our metrics. We're gonna share and this is how we do on these metrics, and there are going to be folks in the audience who do better than us on some of these things, and we're going to learn from those folks. So but really excited for my team to get the chance to show off, and I'm really proud of them, and I think they're going to put on a great show.
I have been amazed how much you and Christiana have shared with me and my team to help us get better. And I'm so impressed that you would do that. I used to keep all my stuff pretty close to the vest, and what I've realized is that rising tide truly does raise all boats. And you can share someone all your things. I mean, we don't share everything here, but trying to get someone to go and take them and implement them, that's a whole different thing. And I think you're always ahead sharing. And, the folks that share more end up getting more from others too. So it's kind of like a give and take relationship. What's on the horizon for Landscape Workshop the next, say, 5 years, JT?
Yeah. So, first, we're going to keep investing in talent. We've got 13 interns this year. I never know how they're going to be, but I hope that those are our project managers and account managers of the future. Um, we're going to continue the conversation I had. How do we use data and information better? Um, but the most important thing, because I got to create opportunity for our high performers and I've got to create returns for our shareholders, is we're going to keep growing 20 or 30% every year while maintaining our culture. I don't want us to get mediocre while we're getting big. I want us to be trying to get a tiny bit better every year, but also we've got to have that growth. I will lose my superstars if I don't have the next opportunity for them. And frankly, my shareholders will be unhappy too. So that is the big challenge. I think a lot of the things that I'm not happy about in our business, if we paused for a couple of years, we could fix them all. But frankly, that doesn't work for any of our
No,
stakeholders.
right.
So we've got to keep growing at that 20 to 30% a year and maintain and enhance our culture. And that's a lot and it's hard, but we've got a great team. I believe in them. They work their rear ends off. And we're going to keep investing in the next generation of leaders in our organization.
Well, JT, I so appreciate having you here today on the Grow Show, powered by Steel. You're a great guy. I consider you a good friend. Thanks for sharing. Can't wait to get down there to Birmingham, Alabama. Maybe I'll come in the night before. We'll go to that nice restaurant you took me to last time. Folks, JT, any last final words or anything I didn't ask you that you wanted me to?
Now, listen, we're going to hopefully, if they want the rest of the secrets, they need to come to the NALP Field Trip in Birmingham, June 11th and 12th. Raise a little money for NALP, which is fighting the good fight on things like H2B, on workforce issues, on helping us all succeed. Marty, I just want to say, really excited that you and Vince and Emily are coming to visit, and also really excited and really appreciative of all you do for NALP in the industry.
Well, it's a blessing. The things that I get to learn, the people like you that I get to meet, the experiences. I mean, I'm going to learn a lot. Walking through your place, looking in your underwear drawers, as we like to joke about. But also, I'm going to learn a lot from people there. There's always someone that asks a question that I'm like, gosh, I didn't think about that. I need to wisen up to that myself. And it's such a cool learning experience. There's something magical about getting out of the office and going away for a couple days and networking, having a drink at the end of the day. We got some cool venues planned for that. And I just think it's an incredible learning experience. And yeah, you can learn online, you can learn at a university, you can all these other things, but man, this experiential learning, when you actually get to see a company operating, I just think it's a whole different deal.
It was every time I visit with a colleague, every time I go to grow or elevate, I come back with one or two things
Me
that we
too.
can do in our business, and it pays for the trip multiple times over.
Amen. All right, JT, we're going to see you soon. That's going to do it for the Grow Show powered by Steel this week, folks. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the Grow Show. And if you can, give it a rating or share a comment. That helps more success minded landscape professionals find us. And if you really want to help us, share this episode with your team or any landscape pro you know. Thanks for joining us this week on the Grow Show. We'll see you next week. So long, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grow Show. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and head to growgroupinc.com for more information and resources to grow your landscaping business. A special thanks to the folks at Steel, whose support makes this podcast possible and whose reliable handheld power equipment makes our jobs easier daily. We'll talk to you next week.